The Dayspring from on high hath visited us, to give light unto them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. Dayspring is an effort to be in touch with good people who love God and who believe that the Bible is His Word. Dayspring is brought to you by your neighbors from Churches of Christ in this area. And now, visit with us as we draw near to God.
I am so pleased that you have come our way. Thank you for being our guest. We open the Bible and we think together about what it says. I shall begin our thoughts today by reading from Judges, that Old Testament book. First of all, I shall read chapter 17 and verse 6. That verse reads thus: In those days there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Every man did what seemed right to him. There was no authority, no king in Israel. Well, that was such a prominent thing during the days of the Judges. I turn over to the last book, last chapter of Judges, and the last verse. And there again, I read these words. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. We sometimes use the word anarchy to describe that situation. An absence of, or perhaps a denial of, any authority or established order. No order, no authority in the land. So every man does what he wants to do. The absence of an effective government, or the result of that, which is social disorder, confusion. A good synonym is chaos and lawlessness. That's what happens in a society, in a culture, where authority breaks down and there is no one to whom people answer except themselves. Now, we're thinking about that not in society in general, not in our culture, and by the way, that is a thought we need to entertain. But today we're thinking about that thought in connection with religion. Whatever I think religiously is right. What's right to me may not be right to you, but we're free, and every one of us does not answer to any authority except ourselves. Now, while we think about that, every man did that which was right in his own eyes. This thought, God's ways are different to my ways and your ways. This great text, one of my favorite in the Old Testament, in Isaiah chapter 55, beginning at verse 6, the Bible says, "Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return to the Lord, and he will have mercy on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. As the rain comes down and the snow from heaven, and returns not thither, but waters the earth, and makes it to bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it. God said, my ways are not your ways, talking to me. And my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways and my thoughts are not the same as those which God has. We need to understand that. Heavens are higher than the earth, so are God's ways and thoughts higher than ours. Listen, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 25. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. For ye see your calling, brethren, how that many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble, are called. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty, and the base things of the world, and things which are despised hath God chosen, yea, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. Again, God's most foolish moment is wiser than the wisest of men. I repeat, God's ways are different to mine and to yours. And so in our text in Judges, there was no king in Israel, no authority. So every man did what was right in his own eyes. That's different to God. When God sent Samuel out to find a new king for Israel, Samuel thought he'd found the man. He looked at him and he looked like a perfect candidate. And God said, look not on his countenance, nor on the height of his stature, for I have refused him. The Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. The Lord has a completely different point of view to mine and yours. His thoughts are higher above us. So, now, here are these people in a society where there was no authority. And the result of that was every man was an authority to himself. There was no king in Israel, so every man did what was right in his own eyes. That's not the way God sees things. God sees things differently to me and to you. So, since this is so, since it is true that God's ways are not my ways, since that's the case, I can't have it both ways. I cannot have God's ways and my ways, because they don't go together. It's either one or the other. And if it's my ways, just mine and yours for yourself and everybody else, that's anarchy. There's no recognized authority in all the land. The result is confusion, chaos, lawlessness. So, I'll read this passage to you from Matthew. Matthew chapter 15, verse 7. Jesus said, Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoureth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. There's contemplated some people who are doing that which is right in their own eyes. And Jesus said, it's vain. That kind of worship and service to God is vain because it comes from the individual and it doesn't come from God. Can't have it both ways. Romans 10, that chapter begins like this. Paul talking about Israel. My heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. And they, being ignorant of God's righteousness, and going about to establish a righteousness of their own, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. What's going on? Paul said these people are out to establish their own righteousness, what they think. And remember, God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So we can't have it both ways. We can't have it our way and God's way at the same time. This challenging passage in the book of Colossians, in Colossians chapter 2, beginning at verse 20, the apostle wrote, Wherefore, if ye be dead from the rudiments of the world, why as though living in the world are you subject to ordinances? Touch not, taste not, handle not, which are to perish with the using, after the commandments and doctrines of men, which things have indeed a show of wisdom in will worship, and humility, and neglecting of the body, nor not in the honor to the satisfying of the flesh. The phrase in that passage is will worship. Worshiping according to my will. How am I going to worship God? Well, I'm going to worship God in the way that seems best to me, that satisfies me. That's what the apostle called will worship. Interesting. The English Standard Version of the Bible renders that phrase will worship self-made worship. Here's worship that's self-made. You and I make it up. It's what satisfies us, what fulfills us. And the New King James Version says it is self-imposed worship. Same thing, self-made. Imagining trying to offer up worship, service to God, which we made up ourselves. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Oh, my friend, religiously, it's easy for us to come to that hour when we do that which is right in our own judgment, and we're not so much concerned about God's way of doing things. There is a word of caution that is extended to us, and we do well to heed that word of caution. Jeremiah 10, verse 23. That great prophet said, O Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walks to direct his own steps. Jeremiah wrote those words for my benefit, for yours. It's not self-made religion. It's not within my power to direct my own steps religiously. But if we renounce all of the authority, then everybody does that which is right in his own eyes. But there's that caution. Solomon, the great wise man of old, said, there is a way that seems right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. There's a caution. I can follow my own ideas. I can offer up God homemade religion, that which seems good and right to me and fulfilling to me. But Solomon warns, the end thereof, the ways of death. I cannot afford to follow my own ideas religiously. I must leave that up to God. Isaiah chapter 65. In Isaiah chapter 65, verse 2, God said, I have spread out my hands all the day unto a rebellious people, which walk in a way that is not good after their own thoughts. What is it, Isaiah? Well, God said these people are walking in a way that is determined by their own thoughts, and it's not good. The word thoughts in that verse is translated in another English version by the word devices. They walk after their own devices. Religiously. What am I religiously? I'm whatever I want it to be. I shall make my own plan. I shall determine what's good and right for me. Here's the caution. The caution is, the end thereof are the ways of death. Let me turn back to Deuteronomy chapter 12. In Deuteronomy chapter 12 and verse 8, the law of Moses. Ye shall not do after all the things that we do here this day, every man, whatsoever is right in his own eyes. Now God, through Moses, said, don't do that. This is not the way to do it. These people do whatever is right, not in God's eyes, but in their own eyes. Every man does what's right in his own eyes. And that text says that's not good. And it wasn't good then, and it's not good today. Going to be a religious person? On what basis am I going to be a religious person? Well, whatever seems good to me. Whatever satisfies my yearnings. Whatever gives me fulfillment and makes me happy. I'm going to follow my own judgment. But the point is, we live in a wonderful land where we're free to choose. We're not imposed on by a government that says, this is the state religion and this is the religion you practice if you live here. Isn't it wonderful that we have freedom of religion in our country so that I can be religiously whatever I want to be? With this thought, with this caution, I must not take my own will before the will of God. When I do, I've put my feet on a path that leads to destruction, leads away from God. There was no king in Israel, so every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Now, Luke's account of the life of Christ. In Luke chapter 22. In Luke chapter 22 and at verse 42, this is an example for you and for me. Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. There's the example Jesus set for us. Not my will, but God, it's your will. Shouldn't we have that same attitude? Lord, my prayer is that your will be done, not my will. What I want, what I think, what seems good to me doesn't matter. It's what God says. And therein is the crux of the whole matter. I'm free to choose. I'm free to choose my own way if that's what I want. But the Lord helps us understand it is imperative that we choose His way. Listen again, the attitude, the great example of our Lord, Jesus. John chapter 6, verse 39, verse 38. Jesus said, I came down from heaven not to do mine own will, but the will of him that sent me. Oh, what a great passage that is. A great example for me. I'm here religiously, not to do my own will, but the will of God. I'm free to choose, but may I be wise enough to choose not my own, but God's way for me. So you remember this very familiar text back in Matthew 7, verse 21. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say unto me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name have done many wonderful works? Then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. What's the problem? The problem is that they were religious, but their religion was homemade. It was a religion they made up themselves. And the Lord responded to them, you depart from me, I have never known you. How sad to contemplate that that could happen to me, but it'll happen to me if I do that which is right in my own eyes. This gets close to us. It's an affront to our ego, but we must realize that as far as the Lord is concerned, we are servants. Luke 17 and verse 10, likewise ye, when ye have done all that is commanded you, say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done that which was our duty to do. I'm going to be a servant, not of myself, self-serving, not doing right in my own eyes, but serving God. And I'm going to serve Him according to His way. That's the attitude that I must have. We all must have that attitude if we are to be pleasing to God. Listen to this passage in Romans chapter 6. Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, His servants ye are, to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death, or of obedience unto righteousness. God be thanked, ye were the servants of sin, but have obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine delivered you. Being then made free from sin, ye became the servants of righteousness. Serve, not myself. Satisfy, not myself. I'm not free to practice a religion that came from my own thinking. I'm free to do it, but it won't profit me. Instead, the admonition is, be a servant of the Lord. There's the key. His will has been made known to us on the pages of this marvelous book. And as we seek out its truths with the attitude, I want to do what the Lord has taught me to do. I want to be pleasing to Him, not satisfying myself, but satisfying God. And so back there in Judges, twice in that book, we read, there was no king in Israel. So every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Confusion resulted from that. Lawlessness, chaos, disorder. May you and I have the good judgment to make ourselves servants of God. Thank you for being with us today. We've enjoyed our visit. Until the next time, may the goodness of God be yours in full measure.
You've been watching Dayspring. Dayspring is brought to you by your friends in local area churches of Christ. To request a free CD of today's lesson, you may contact us at Dayspring, Post Office Box 453, Tupelo, Mississippi, 38802, 0453. There is no cost for this offer. You will not be asked for financial support. You can also phone your request toll-free at 1-866-842-4139. Or you can go to our website at dayspringtv.com. Thank you for visiting with us on Dayspring. May your joy be full. May the peace of God rule in your hearts. And may the light of Christ brighten heaven's way.